Sarah's life had always been quieter than most people's, a gentle hum beneath the clamor of a bustling world. From the outside, her childhood looked like a picture of normalcy. She attended school, laughed with friends, and helped her mother around the house. Yet within her chest, Sarah carried a weight that no one could see, a burden that shaped her like the unyielding hands of time. In the small home where she lived, a cramped space with peeling paint and uneven floors, each creak of the ceiling fan echoed like a tired sigh, mirroring the rhythm of their days. Her father, a security guard, returned from long night shifts with exhausted eyes and silent lips, while her mother stitched clothes at home, her raw fingers deftly threading needles despite the pain. Scraps of fabric lay scattered around them, remnants of a laborious love. As the eldest of three children, Sarah learned early that asking for anything often meant taking from someone else, and so she learned to want less, to carry more. She accepted the invisible burdens of responsibility, her spirit heavy, yet resilient. Each morning began long before the sun cast its golden hue across the horizon. At 5 a.m., while the world lay cocooned in slumber, Sarah would quietly rise, careful not to disturb her younger brother sleeping on the floor beside her. The kitchen welcomed her with the faint smell of boiled milk, a comforting scent that promised warmth. Her mother was already hard at work, fingers moving with the precision of a master artist, stitching tiny hems into garments that would soon dress unknowing customers. "Good morning, Ma," Sarah whispered, her voice barely breaking the stillness of dawn. Her mother's brief smile was enough to carry Sarah through the daily grind. Pouring herself a cup of tea, barely warm, swirled with a thin layer of milk and sugar, she would sip slowly, reviewing her school lessons as the silence wrapped around her like a familiar blanket. Some days it was comforting, other days it felt suffocating. At school, however, the air changed. There, beneath the fluorescent lights and amongst the chatter of peers, Sarah felt a flicker of light. Teachers admired her dedication. Friends commented on her strength. "You're so strong, Sarah," they would say, not knowing that her strength was a crafted facade, born from survival rather than an innate gift. It was a mask that protected her from the expectations that loomed like storm clouds overhead. Sarah lost herself in books, pages filled with worlds where pain was distant and dreams weren't overshadowed by reality. She dreamed of becoming a psychologist, of understanding the intricate tapestry of human emotions. Yet dreams were a luxury she could not afford. Tuition fees, books, transportation, all loomed like mountains too high to climb. As such, she tucked her aspirations into the crevices of her daily life, imagining a classroom filled with eager students or a quiet ring where she could help someone in pain, but never daring to speak of them for fear that sharing would lead to loss. Her observations of her parents painted a vivid picture of devotion. Her father's shoulders sagged under the weight of his sacrifices, while her mother's calloused hands never ceased their movement, stitching together not just fabric, but the very fabric of their family life. Sarah learned that love was often wrapped in silent acts of sacrifice, and if she wanted to belong, she had to follow suit. By 12, her daily routine was a cacophony of chores: sweeping floors, washing dishes, folding laundry, and running errands for neighbors to earn a meager allowance. Every coin was a lifeline, but her siblings' needs always came first. Sarah learned to put herself last, a quiet martyr in the sanctuary of her home, even as her stomach rumbled from skipped meals. "Don't worry, Ma," she would say softly, dismissing her own hunger for the sake of reassurance. "We'll manage." But behind her gentle smile lay a truth they all struggled to acknowledge. Her friends knew her as the girl who always wore a smile, who had the answers in class and never missed homework. They saw her strength as something admirable, yet they didn't see the cracks beneath the surface, nor did they know the cost of her invisible burdens. At night, when silence enveloped the house, Sarah would perch by the window, moonlight spilling over her like a soft embrace. In those moments, she allowed her mask to slip, pouring her heart into her journal, writing what she couldn't say out loud. "Why does life expect so much from me? Am I strong or just afraid to fall apart in front of others? Do my dreams even matter? Or are they just a luxury I can't afford?" Writing became her secret rebellion, her only form of honesty that wouldn't invite worry or disappointment. Then one day, an envelope arrived, heavy with promise. It was an official letter, and as she opened it, Sara trembled with disbelief. She had been selected for a merit-based scholarship at a local college. The words danced on the page, shimmering with the possibility of her dreams taking flight. For a moment, she let herself envision a future where education was her escape from the shackles of sacrifice. However, as her father read the letter aloud, reality pierced her hopeful bubble. "Partial scholarship means we still have to pay," he said, his voice laden with exhaustion. "Books, transport, fees, everything else." The dream that had bloomed within her chest wilted under the weight of their financial struggles. She managed a faint smile, hiding the despair that threatened to consume her. "I understand," she murmured, but that night she cried quietly into her pillow. The first tears of a long time. It was a moment of clarity. Life could dangle hope in front of you, only to demand more than you could give. After that, Sara stopped asking for permission. She stopped hoping in the open and burrowed deeper into her studies, becoming invisible in ways that were necessary for her survival. She often pondered the paradox of strength, how it was revered yet unnoticed, admired yet isolating. No one asked if she was okay, but still, she endured. She cultivated the ability to carry her burdens in silence, to smile through aching hearts, and to guard her dreams as fiercely as a dragon protects its treasure. On a night when the moon draped the city in silver light, Sara perched at the edge of her window, staring down at the world below. In a soft whisper, she affirmed to herself, "I may bend, I may stumble, I may feel lost, but I will not disappear." That promise became her foundation, shaping how she navigated life's treacherous waters. It was the first lesson she would carry into adulthood. Strength is not always loud or recognized. Sometimes, true strength is simply the courage to continue, silently, steadily, and against all odds. Life did not pause for Sara. It rushed forward, unyielding and insistent, like the relentless tide washing over the shore, leaving her gasping for breath. By the time she turned 19, the weight of her responsibilities felt like an anchor, dragging her down into the depths of exhaustion. Yet she had learned to carry those burdens in silence. Each sunrise found her awake before the world stirred, her hands calloused from sweeping the floor, stitching clothes, and curling around her textbooks, all while her stomach protested with hunger. Her father's night shifts barely scraped together enough for rent, while her mother's sewing orders yielded meager returns, barely enough to fill their empty fridge. As the eldest child, Sara understood with painful clarity that her family's survival rested squarely on her shoulders. It was a responsibility that felt more like a shackle every day. Each morning began at 5 a.m., the sun still a promise on the horizon, as she slipped into simple clothes and prepared tea for her family. The aroma filled their tiny home, mingling with the scent of worn fabric from her mother's sewing. After a hurried breakfast, if they were lucky to have one, she set out to tutor neighborhood children, earning just enough to add a few coins to their dwindling supply. The work was relentless. After tutoring, she rushed off to a part-time job at a small office, where she typed numbers for endless hours, correcting records and replying to emails. Each keystroke weighted with the fear of failure. The city outside buzzed with life, laughter, and dreams, but Sara drifted through it like a ghost, tethered to her responsibilities, devoid of the energy to forge friendships or indulge in hobbies. It was during a particularly grueling week, when the shadows of her life felt particularly heavy, that her father returned home early, his face a mask of weariness. "They're cutting hours at my work," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, as if sharing a secret that could shatter the fragile stability of their lives. The moment froze in time as Sara processed his words. Panic was a luxury she could not afford, so she calculated the numbers in her mind: rent, groceries, school fees for her younger brother, a doctor's visit that loomed on the horizon. The math never added up, and her heart sank as she absorbed the harsh truth. Resolutely, she added herself to the list of sacrifices. Sleep and small comforts became distant memories as she took on another tutoring assignment, determined that her brother would not be forced to leave school. When friends called, inviting her to join the laughter and camaraderie, she politely declined. There was no room for leisure in a life balanced precariously on the edge of survival. At 21, Sara finally secured her first real office job. a customer support role at a small private firm. The salary was modest, the hours stretched endlessly, but a flicker of independence sparked within her. Yet, with independence came the weight of new chains. Her supervisor's constant criticisms pierced her like arrows. Her soft voice, honed from years of quiet existence, was deemed weak. Customers yelled at her over the phone, each impatient word chipping away at her spirit. "Do you even know what you're doing?" one client barked, frustration spilling over like an overflowing pot. Sara clenched her jaw, nodding silently as she typed responses, trying to convince herself that she could endure this, like she had endured so much before. But one night, under the dim light of street lamps, the exhaustion overwhelmed her. As tears streamed down her face, mingling with the chill of the night air, she confronted a painful reality. Hard work did not guarantee respect, strength did not ensure safety, and endurance did not promise survival. Guilt wrapped around her like a thick fog, suffocating her. Every moment spent thinking about her future felt like a betrayal to her family. Her dreams had become luxuries she could no longer afford. When her younger brother asked her, "Diddy, what do you want to become?" she froze, fear gripping her heart. She had been too busy surviving to even consider the question. Who was she if she wasn't helping someone else? Who could she be if she chose to live for herself? One fateful day, after another grueling shift, Sara made a small mistake on a client's report. Her supervisor's anger echoed in the office, humiliation searing through her. On the bus ride home, unnoticed tears slid down her cheeks. She felt unseen, unheard, and for the first time, her silence, which had once protected her, now felt like a prison. Questions swirled in her mind. Was this life all she was meant for? Had her sacrifices ever been enough? Would her dreams remain buried forever? She understood, painfully, that fairness was a luxury she could not afford to expect. Some nights, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, contemplating whether she could carry on. Exhaustion seeped into her bones, but the weight of her family's expectations kept her anchored. Then, one night, a thought flickered through her mind like a spark in the dark. What if surviving was not enough? It was terrifying, yet liberating. For the first time, she questioned not just the world around her, but her very essence. Could she survive and live? Could she balance duty with desire? Around this time, she stumbled upon an affordable online psychology course. Flexible, part-time, a glimmer of hope. She hesitated, doubts creeping in. Would she have time? Money? Energy? But then she recalled the nights she whispered to herself in the dark. "I will not disappear." That promise became her anchor as she enrolled quietly, protecting the fragile hope she had begun to nurture. Even with multiple jobs, she carved out an hour or two each night to study. Initially, it felt impossible, her eyelids heavy with fatigue, her confidence wavering. Yet gradually, she rediscovered her passion for psychology, the desire to understand people, to help them find their voices. She began to see her pain not as a burden, but as a source of strength, a guide toward her true self. As she persevered, Sara began to feel alive again. By the time she reached the end of this phase of her life, she learned that mere survival was insufficient. Hard work, endurance, and silent sacrifice could carry her thus far. But to truly live, she needed to honor herself as well. Part of her fear lingered, the world still demanding, but for the first time in years, she dared to hope that she could survive and live simultaneously. In the quiet hum of an ordinary Tuesday, life tilted for Sara, though it crept up on her like a thief in the night. The fluorescent lights buzzed above her, casting a sterile glow that only accentuated her fatigue. The air in the office felt thick, as if it were steeped in unspoken frustrations and hidden dreams. Sara sat hunched over her desk, fingers dancing across keys, her mind a blur of reports and calls. She was invisible to the world, enduring the relentless demands placed upon her. Years of survival had shaped her, molded her into someone strong, yet silent. A silent vessel carrying burdens she never dared to voice. How could she? The weight of family responsibilities hung heavy on her shoulders, and to falter meant risking everything. But on that fateful Tuesday, the invisible strings of endurance snapped. A sudden dizziness washed over her. The room swayed, as if it were alive, taunting her frail constitution. Her heart raced, and then the cool linoleum floor rushed to meet her as she collapsed, the world around her erupting into chaos. Phones clattered, chairs scraped against the ground, and startled voices echoed, but Sara heard none of it. At the clinic, the doctor peered over his glasses, his voice flat as he uttered words that cut deeper than any knife. Severe exhaustion. Your body is screaming for rest. You cannot keep living like this. The truth settled heavily in her chest, mingling with a sense of awakening. Days turned into a blur of despair. Every small mistake at work felt like a monumental failure. One afternoon, after a grueling day, she entered a wrong detail into a client report. The sharp reprimand from her supervisor echoed in her ears, a public chastisement that ignited humiliation in her heart. That was the moment. Something inside her cracked open, and the dam of silence broke. With purpose, she gathered her belongings, each step away from her desk, liberating, yet terrifying. No explanation, no turning back, Sara walked out. The thought of facing her colleagues and the weight of their expectations evaporated into the distance behind her. At home, silence reigned. Her parents sensed the shift in the air, their worried glances punctuating the stillness. "You quit?" her father asked, voice soft, concern lacing his words. "Yes," Sara replied, the weight of that single syllable hanging in the air like a fragile promise. Guilt wrapped around her, a suffocating blanket that whispered cruelly in her mind. "How could I quit? I have responsibilities." But beneath that guilt, a flicker of relief surged, a feeling almost forgotten amidst the noise of her existence. Fear flooded her veins, yes, but it was a fear of freedom, the exhilarating taste of uncharted territory. Lying awake that night, the creaking ceiling fan mirrored the whirlwind of thoughts racing through her mind. Years of silent sacrifice had led to this moment, and she finally confronted the terrifying truth. Survival alone was not enough. For the first time, Sara dared to view herself not as a dutiful daughter or a weary employee, but simply as Sara, a girl with dreams, emotions, worth beyond obligations. Could she survive and live? Days later, as she scrolled through the endless noise of the internet, an ad caught her eye. A part-time psychology course that spoke of flexibility, of affordable education for working adults. She stared at it, a storm of fear and hope swirling within her. Doubt clawed at her. Did she even deserve this? Then a soft whisper, a promise made to herself long ago, echoed in her mind. "I will not disappear." With a heart pounding wildly, she applied and enrolled. The action terrified her, but for the first time in years, a spark of possibility ignited within her. The course demanded energy she wasn't sure she possessed. Juggling tutoring, a part-time job, and household chores left her exhausted, often falling asleep over her notes. Yet each lecture and reading became a lifeline, reminding her of the girl she once aspired to be. Choosing herself, even in small doses, felt revolutionary. Each small act of self-care built her resilience. She began to see strength not as simply enduring hardship, but as recognizing her own worth and refusing to vanish without acknowledgement. One evening, perched on the rooftop with the city lights flickering like distant stars, Sara embraced the silence around her. She whispered to the night, "I survived, but now I will live." The words felt foreign yet liberating. No longer consumed by guilt, she imagined a life where her dreams held weight alongside her duties. Sara's breaking point had arrived, necessary and raw. It stripped her of old illusions, forced her to confront her reality, and opened a fragile door towards self-discovery. The journey ahead was still daunting. Responsibilities lingered, challenges awaited. Yet, she emerged with invaluable lessons. She could survive without disappearing, choose herself without guilt, and rise without permission. And in that moment on the rooftop, she understood that true strength lay not just in endurance, but in the courage to honor oneself amidst the chaos of life. In the dim light of her small apartment, Sara sat at her desk, surrounded by stacks of books and scattered notes. The air was thick with the scent of coffee and a hint of lavender from the candle flickering nearby. Healing was not a sudden event for her. It did not arrive with fireworks or dramatic declarations. Instead, it crept in quietly, much like the soft glow of dawn that gradually chased away the shadows of night. After leaving a toxic job that drained her spirit, Sara enrolled in an online psychology course, feeling an unfamiliar mix of fear and hope fluttering in her chest. She was terrified of failing, of becoming overwhelmed by the sheer volume of work ahead of her. Yet, there was an exhilarating thrill in the possibility of reclaiming a part of herself she had long ignored. The course was rigorous, demanding hours of reading, note-taking, and deep reflection. As she explored trauma, emotional exhaustion, and resilience, she found her own life mirrored in the lessons. Each chapter revealed the patterns she had endured silently: self-sacrifice, suppressed emotions, and the guilt that weighed her down like an anchor. At first, reading those words was painful. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she recognized the depth of her own suffering, hidden away for years. Yet in that pain, a new clarity began to emerge. Her suffering was not a flaw. It was a testament to her endurance, a badge of survival that told her she had lived through the darkest of storms. With each lesson learned, the course required her participation in online group discussions. Initially, Sara recoiled at the thought of sharing her feelings and experiences. But one evening, when the instructor posed the question, "Who has ever felt burned out or overwhelmed and would like to share?" something shifted within her. Her hands trembled as she typed her response. "I used to think strength meant never stopping. Now I realize that I was just disappearing silently. I am tired, but I am trying to learn what it means to live." Responses flooded in, each one a lifeline thrown into the sea of her loneliness. "I feel the same way. Thank you for being honest. Your words make me feel less alone." For the first time in years, Sara felt seen, not by family, not by friends, but by strangers who resonated with her pain. Relief surged through her as tears of acknowledgement fell. She was finally allowing herself to exist, to take up space in the world. However, healing was not a linear path. Some nights were dark, filled with guilt for leaving her job, for prioritizing herself, and for daring to dream of a brighter future. Responsibilities loomed large. Her family still relied on her. Money was tight, and her younger brother needed her support. Old exhaustion returned in waves as she juggled part-time tutoring, household duties, and her studies, often stealing only 3 or 4 hours of sleep. But now, whenever the weight of the world threatened to pull her under, she paused to breathe. She allowed herself moments of rest, journaling her thoughts and practicing breathing exercises that she had learned in her course. Slowly, she discovered that resting was not a sign of weakness. It was an act of survival, an essential step toward growth. As she delved deeper into her studies, Sara stumbled upon a small online volunteer opportunity to provide peer support for those grappling with burnout and anxiety. Doubt crept in. Who am I to help someone else? But then she remembered the nights she had longed for someone to listen without judgment. With a shaky resolve, she signed up. Her first conversation was with a young woman, tears softly falling as she shared her burdens of family expectations and work pressures. Sara listened intently, validating her feelings and offering empathy without rushing to give advice. When the call ended, her hands still shook, but inside, a spark ignited, a connection beyond words, a reminder that she had become the safe space she had desperately needed. Weeks flowed by, and with each small victory, confidence blossomed within her. She completed assignments on time, participated actively in discussions, and supported her peers, each success building upon the last. She felt less guilt for resting, allowing herself to enjoy fleeting moments of joy, immersing herself in music, diving into books, or basking in the night air on her rooftop, where she could forget the world below. Sara began to notice changes in her relationships. She was more patient with her family, able to voice her needs without guilt. Laughter came easier now, and with it the realization that she deserved her own life, not just survival, but vibrant living. Yet the internal critic, cultivated through years of self-sacrifice, lurked in the shadows. It whispered insidiously each time she paused. "You are lazy. You are selfish. You are failing everyone." But through therapy lessons, journaling, and self-reflection, Sara began to challenge these thoughts. With each entry in her journal, she learned to forgive herself for wanting more, for needing rest, for daring to dream. "Being human is enough," she wrote one night. "I do not have to be perfect to deserve care or happiness." This powerful realization became her mantra, a gentle reminder that resilience wasn't about endless endurance, but about living with intention. By the semester's end, a new perspective blossomed within her. She understood that her pain had value. It had taught her empathy, patience, and resilience. With her experiences, she could help guide others, reclaiming a life that had once felt lost. As she climbed the stairs to her favorite rooftop one evening, memories flooded back of a time when she had whispered, "I will not disappear." Now, under the moonlight, she whispered something new. "I am learning to live." With a deep breath, she inhaled the cool night air, gazing at the twinkling city lights below. Hope washed over her. Not the naive hope of childhood, but the grounded, patient hope of someone who had endured, fallen, and chosen to rise. Sara knew she was not fully healed. Life still demanded much of her, and challenges would continue to arise. But she now had a foundation built on self-awareness, self-compassion, and the courage to grow. Strength had transformed from a silent endurance into a symphony of listening to herself, acknowledging her pain, and moving forward despite it. Her healing journey remained fragile and ongoing, yet now she understood something profound. Surviving is not the same as living, and endurance is not synonymous with strength. True resilience is learning to honor oneself while navigating a demanding, imperfect world. Some victories arrive loudly, echoing in the halls of celebration, while others creep in quietly, almost unnoticed, like a gentle breeze that stirs the leaves just enough to remind you of its presence. Sara's victory was the quieter kind, a subtle shift that reverberated within her soul. After years of surviving, sacrificing, and quietly carrying the weight of life, Sara stumbled upon a profound revelation. Strength is not solely about enduring pain, but about choosing oneself. True strength manifests in the courage to use your experiences to uplift others, and to live authentically, unapologetically. The path to this realization wasn't paved with fanfare, but instead it blossomed in the stillness of her heart. Her days were still bustling with the usual chaos of life: part-time tutoring, household chores, and her ever-challenging psychology studies, but they had transformed. No longer did she feel like just a cog in the relentless machinery of existence. Now, she moved with intention. Each step was deliberate, and she found joy in the simplest moments: a warm cup of tea, the laughter of her younger brother, or the soft chirping of birds outside her window. Sara began to carve out moments for quiet reflection, allowing herself to breathe deeply and smile when joy took her by surprise. Laughter flowed freely from her lips, no longer stifled by the fear of judgment. In these moments, she began to unearth the revelation: she didn't need the world's validation to feel worthy. One transformative experience unfolded when Sara volunteered for an online peer support platform. She found herself immersed in the stories of those grappling with burnout, stress, and anxiety, the very struggles she had endured in silence for too long. The first call was brief yet intense. A young woman poured out her heart, expressing the heaviness of family expectations and the suffocating pressure that choked her dreams. Sara listened intently, a comforting presence as she validated the woman's feelings without interruption or unsolicited advice. When the call ended, a wave of realization washed over Sara. Her pain could serve a purpose. The struggles that once shamed her had transformed into empathy, a guiding light for others. She had become the safe haven she once so desperately sought. As her volunteer work expanded, Sara connected with more individuals, offering calm, understanding, and encouragement. Each interaction bolstered her belief in her ability to make a difference, crafting a tapestry of hope from the threads of her own experiences. Back at home, Sara noticed the changes echoing in her relationships. No longer was she shrouded in silence. She communicated openly with her family, sharing her feelings and needs without guilt. She opened her heart to her younger brother, sharing the insights gleaned from her studies to help him navigate life's challenges. These small victories stitched a newfound confidence into the fabric of her being. For years, she had acquainted her worth with her ability to serve others, silently sacrificing her own needs and dreams under the weight of expectation. But now, she began to see herself through a different lens. She recognized her worth, forgiving herself for the years of silent struggle. Dreams, rest, and happiness transformed from luxuries to necessities. Choosing herself was not an act of selfishness. It was an act of survival, growth, and resilience. One evening, she found herself on the rooftop where she had once whispered, "I will not disappear." Under the stars, she breathed deeply and whispered anew, I am still here. I am learning to live. I am enough. The city lights blinked below her, and the wind caressed her face, bringing with it a sense of belonging. She was not just surviving, but living fully and courageously. Her victories were quiet, personal, yet deeply meaningful. The ripples of her journey began to touch those around her. Neighbors, friends, and students sought her guidance, finding solace in the warmth of her understanding. Strangers reached out for encouragement, and each person she helped became a testament to the strength she had cultivated silently over the years. Sara's life transformed into a subtle revolution, proving that resilience is not measured by visibility, wealth, or accolades, but by empathy, courage, and the willingness to rise, even in the silence. Looking back, she saw the girl she once was, small, tired, and invisible, enduring more than anyone should. Yet that girl had persisted, carrying on through the shadows without ever disappearing. Now, the woman Sara had become exuded a strength she never knew possible, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. No longer was strength about holding everything inside. It was about choosing to live, to heal, and to use her journey to uplift others. Life would continue to test her limits, but she learned to honor them, understanding that true courage lies in acknowledging one's boundaries. Sara's story might never grace the headlines or earn her awards, for silent victories often go unnoticed. Yet its power pulsated in the hearts of those she touched, the students she guided, the community she uplifted, and within herself, the woman who finally learned to live fully. Strength, she realized, is not merely surviving life's toughest challenges, but becoming the person you once needed. Kind, compassionate, and unwaveringly present. And for Sara, that realization was more than enough.